Polar bears live in the circumpolar north. They can occupy spaces in both the Arctic and the subarctic in certain regions. Our polar bears typically are focused more on lipids and fats, and so are eating things like marine mammals, seals, walrus, whale. And they do so in kind of a hyperphagia type feeding strategy where they're eating. Doesn't matter how recently their last meal was. They're opportunistic in that they will always eat to make sure that they're filling up because they never know when the next meal is coming. Our polar bears also live on the sea ice. And so for them, they rely on the sea ice to survive, period. Our polar bears need the sea ice for hunting. So that is their primary method for hunting their food. They also rely on the sea ice for transportation. So that's how they can move around, look for food. In many subpopulations of our polar bears, they rely on the ice for maternal denning. So some will come on shore to den, especially those further south. But our polar bear friends up in the high Arctic, many of those females will actually just den right on the ice when it's time to give birth. The Arctic is currently warming 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. And one of the biggest threats to our polar bears right now is the loss of Arctic sea ice. And so what's happening right now is what we like to call Arctic amplification. So that warming is occurring so much faster because as we are trapping these greenhouse gases, I'm sure you've heard. So as we are warming our atmosphere, as we are constantly trapping more and more heat inside our atmosphere, the result is that when there is sea ice present, that there is more of it being melted because of the warming nature of the Arctic. And so it ends up being a little bit like a positive feedback loop. So the warm temperatures are melting the ice, there's more open water, and then that water is then absorbing that heat energy coming in. And then the result is further ice melt. And so it's kind of just getting worse and worse. And so, as I mentioned, polar bears rely exclusively on the sea ice for the majority of their lives. When they're not on the ice, they're fasting. And so the problem there is, if we don't have reliable sea ice for them to hunt, to mate, to give birth, to travel, well, they can't really be polar bears. They can't really thrive and survive. And so the result there, we see more and more bears on shore fasting for increasingly long periods of time. And that can be, of course, very dangerous because the longer the fast, the more likely they are to experience food stress and, in some areas, starvation. We have seen in our research and many of our studies that the approximate threshold, fasting threshold that our polar bears can meet is 180 days would be a limit. At 180 days of fasting on shore, we are starting to see about 2/3 of our subadult bears. So those are bears typically between the ages of 2 to 2.5 to 5. And those bears will face food stress and eventual starvation, and about 20% of our adult males. That's difficult, as you know, it's becoming more and more difficult for them to feed on the sea ice with less time. Our females are coming ashore a little bit later. Physiologically, the bears are getting smaller from a stature perspective, not even a weight perspective. There's a lot we can do. There's a lot we can do. Of course, the number one thing and the number one problem that we can address is we need to get a handle on this rampant carbon dioxide making its way into our atmosphere. So by limiting our emissions, by stopping the burning of coal, oil, natural gas, we can significantly reduce the amount of carbon going into our atmosphere, and we can absolutely slow down and even stop the warming, which is resulting in that melting sea ice.